This is a very special seminar today with Michael Lowenstern, who's coming to us all from New York City today. And as you can see, we have him at 3 camera angles. So we're going to get an extra good look at what he's doing and how he's doing it. And nothing will be left to mystery after this, we hope. And maybe this is how we always get 3 Michaels on the screen. I don't know. We'll find out today.
So really excited to have you here, Michael. For those of you who for some reason have not seen Michael Lowenstern before, you must know this man. You have to look at his Ear Spasm YouTube channel. It's a wonderful source of both entertaining videos but also highly educational ones. I think they're awesome. And Michael, we're really happy to have you here. Do you want to just take over and tell us what you have in store for us?
Yep, sure. So I have gotten a lot of questions over the years about how I do the multi-track recordings that I make. And, you know, so I figured that this would be a decent forum for me to do that. So the plan that I have for today is to show you around the recording studio that I use, which is what I'm sitting in, show you the space where I do the recording, where that awesome blue picture is, and then show you how I record, how I edit, and how I make the multiple me's. There really is only one of me, I swear. And how I, you know, go through all of that process of making the actual video. It's this is the technical part of making the video. Of course, there's always the practicing part and the arranging part, you know, which happens away from all of the studio and all the cameras, where I'm just sitting and I'm sort of figuring out which tunes I want to arrange and then arranging them and then learning them. That I'm not going to talk about. So I took a really simple, very short duet, and we're going to use that as the fodder for today. So, so that's the plan, if you're all up for that. I am going to try not to look at the chat because that's going to distract me. So hopefully, you know, Michelle or Sean, if you guys can just say, I think shut up works pretty well with me. Just tell me to be quiet and I'll be quiet and I'll answer questions as they come in. But yeah, so that's the plan. Are you guys ready?
That sounds great. We're ready.
Okay, great. So I'm going to turn to this camera, and I'm going to take you on a tour of, God, this is kind of like doing the weather, right? You know, I can't see what I'm looking at. Okay, it doesn't matter. If you can all hear me, this is the studio. What you can see here is there's a keyboard. This is a control interface. It's like a mixer, and I'm going to tell you guys what this stuff is as though you don't know. So, you know, if you do know this stuff, just be patient. But normally the way mixers work is it is can you pin this video? I can't hear you. Oh, I can.
Yes,
I can pin it. Yeah,
I've got you pinned too, Michael. So partly it's whoever's viewing it has the option to see it, but
okay,
on
great.
our recording we see you really nicely.
Okay, good. So you're not looking at the back of my head, which is like seriously awkward. All right. Whatever. Okay, so this is a mixer. If you were going to a live concert and you were seeing, you know, a rock concert, and you'd have a guitarist and a vocalist and a drummer that has like 10 microphones around them, all of those microphones go into this big board, and the guy in the back of the house, and you probably have seen somebody like this, is the one that mixes all of the instruments using these, you know, using a much bigger board than this. This doesn't do that. No audio goes into this board. All this does, because only the audio is only going into the computer. What this does is it tells the computer to you know, raise or lower the sound of a track. And I can actually raise and lower the sound of my voice like this, because my voice is actually coming through. Next up on the hit parade is this microphone. This microphone is a microphone. It is what is called a large condenser microphone. It's, for those of you who are interested in recording yourself and sounding better than, I don't know, your iPhone mic picks you up, you don't have to pick up something as big as this, but this is a terrific microphone that I've actually recorded 2 records on. So this is my main mic. I have a few others, but this is my favorite.
Michael, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in just to have a really good viewing experience for those that are watching. I think as I'm reading comments, people are seeing the back of your head. even though I'm not. So here's, for all of you watching on Zoom, you probably see one big screen. If the upper right corner, you're set in speaker view. And then there are a whole bunch of little faces of us that you should be seeing at the top of the screen. And if you do, you click on one of those top right, there's 3 little dots, and you just click pin video, and then you're going to see the view that you want to see as Michael's going through there. So that's the way to, let me ask you this, do you all see a handful of small screens above the big one, or do you just see one big one? Okay, interesting. Just one large screen. Okay, so Michael, it's the audio, it's wherever the audio is coming out of that they're going to see.
Okay. Well, okay, and I can't pin it myself.
I think I have an idea. At the top right hand, does anyone see it says speaker view or gallery view?
They're saying they're not seeing that.
Nope, big no on that.
Oh, they're not.
So I could share, I wonder if I can share my view of this as a shared screen. See, we're doing a cool experiment here, and we haven't quite figured out how to do this. From our end, it looks like everybody can see everything.
Video. What about that? Does that do it?
Let me try something.
Oh, someone said yes. That worked. Sean, you figured it out.
There it is.
Okay, so we spotlight the camera you want. Thank you, Sean.
Okay.
We got it. So, Michael, you can carry on.
So spotlight this camera, the one that I'm holding.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Now
all
we
right.
see your face.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'll start over just showing you the mixer really quickly. This is the mixer that I have. I was just explaining what mixers are, but this mixer is connected to the computer via cables that are not audio cables. They're USB cables. And this actually is just a remote control for my computer, so I don't have to use my mouse. This is the microphone that I use, and we'll just continue the tour. Down here is what's called an audio interface. Now, audio that comes into a microphone is analog, right? I am speaking and I am moving the sound waves, and the microphone itself is picking up the sound waves using this capsule inside. I don't know if you can see it, there's a little round thing. That's, and it's inside a cage just so idiots like me don't touch it. Anyway, so that vibrates and it creates an electrical signal. That signal goes through the cable and it goes into this machine down here. This is what's called an interface, and simply what it does is it takes the electrical signal that the microphone generates and it converts into a digital signal that the computer understands. And that's it. That's really all you need. In fact, you don't need one of these control surfaces, and you don't need a great microphone. And sometimes you don't even need one of these interfaces. You can just do this with a microphone that you can buy for about $150. Now we can pin me to my main front screen. Sean. Good? Everyone's saying, oh, here we go. Hi. All right, so we will stay on this screen for now, and you're looking at me front on. So all of this stuff is going into the computer. What happens on the computer? All right, so first of all, I should stop and say any questions before I move on, because I'm trying not to dwell on anything for too much time. Any questions?
Yeah, so a couple came in. People are asking for specific recommendations for what they might be able to use at home, if you have any that are on a budget. Sure.
I would say the best microphone that I could recommend that's the lowest cost is available for about $150 US. You can use the Yeti. Somebody just mentioned, Martin said that you can use the Yeti. The Yeti is fine. And that's actually probably a little bit less expensive. But I'll tell you what, as part of this, rather than me going and listing and you guys typing it down, I'll let Michelle know, and she can put a list on the this sort of the replay screen, so you can find these things. But most of the ones that I will recommend, they can go straight into your phone and straight into your computer and straight into your iPad. So you can use them anywhere with any device, and it's really great. So then we move into what the software I use is. Somebody I see mentioned, can you use GarageBand? Well, if you have a Mac, the good answer is yes, you can. GarageBand is a piece of software that comes with your computer. I happen to use the big brother of GarageBand, which is called Logic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this software, and I'm going to actually record the duet in front of you, and I'm going to show you how all that works. It's very short, so it should only be painful for a little while. Okay, so let me share that screen. You need to, host needs to enable screen sharing. Got it. Let me know when I'm good.
Okay, I just have to figure out which of your accounts that one is.
It's the main one.
Okay.
So if I could just chime in for a second, someone has asked, is all of that equipment necessary for a simple multi-track recording?
No.
And the answer is probably no, but I'll let Michael go ahead.
Yeah, so when you let me know, Michelle, I can move on, but I'll answer that question. Like I said, you need a good microphone. If you use the phone that's in your, if you use the microphone that's in your phone, you're going to regret it, because those microphones, they sound pretty bad. I actually made a video about Zoom and how to do remote distance learning, and what the microphone does is it just compresses the sound so that it sounds awful. It's great for voices. It's terrible for music, because music has a lot of dynamic contrast, or it should. And so you owe it to yourself, if you're interested in hearing a good sound come out of whatever it is that you're making. You're putting the time in. $100 for a microphone is probably an investment that you'll be able to use for a long time. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen, which is here. All right, so you all should be able to see my screen now. Yes, good. Okay, so this is the software that I use. And what I'm just going to take on a really quick tour of the software. So starting at the top, I have different tracks. What those are just lines that I record into, and I can have as many of those as I want. But because I have a duet, I just have a first part here and a second part. That's all I need, okay? So I have sheet music that I put up on the screen. So that I can, and so you can't see it, but I can. Right now I'm looking at like the blind person's version of this Allegretto by this person named Burr, B-E-R-R. And I can record that now. So I will be using my control surface over here. And if you have a way of being able to see that video and scrolling through it, go right ahead, but it's not important. Simply all I'm gonna be doing is I'm going to be hitting buttons over here rather than clicking stuff on the screen. But first, I have to have my instrument. All right, so I'm pointing my instrument at the microphone. I am about 1.5 feet, or for those of you who don't use feet, probably about, I would say 30, 35, 40 centimeters away from the microphone. And the microphone is pointing right here. It's pointing at the top of the instrument. I do it this way because I think the sound, I've experimented with a lot of different positions of a microphone. For me, this is where I get the sound that I like. You can always experiment with your microphone once you buy it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to record the top line. Now, here's the issue. I hear a little bit of a delay in here, so it's gonna suck. That's okay. I have a pre-recorded version just in the instance that this is as awful as I'm afraid it's going to be. So I have a metronome that's ready to go, and I want to make sure that you guys can hear it. So just going to do a quick test. And Michelle, let me know if you can hear the clicks. No? Can you hear the clicks? Nope. Okay, let me try one more thing. You can hear the clicks. Okay. All right, I'll give it a shot. I'm going to record the top line first and the second line second. Here we go. 1, 2, All right. Yay!
Hooray! We heard it. It was great.
Awesome. Well, it's super distorted in here, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually record the second part, and I'm going to get to hear the first part through my headset while I play the second part.
So, Michael, I'm wondering, because we can see the first video track you made very well, it might be interesting if, as you record the second one, we see you recording it, those who are here live.
See me as in my body?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
You want to turn off your screen share, and we'll highlight you, and then we'll come back to your screen to see the second track being added in.
No problem.
Great.
Okay, so you see me?
Yes.
Okay, this version of me. Okay. All right, so I will now record the second version of it. Let's see if we can hear the first one. It's probably going to be distorted. Okay, yeah, it sounds as bad as I was afraid. Okay, let's do it. 2 bars for nothing. And I need to see the music. Okay, 1, 2. All right. Okay, so now I have 2 parts. Now, I would go back and re-record the first part because I messed it up. So what I'm going to do really quickly is do that so that you can see how I edit. So I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to record over the first part because, yeah, it sounded like butt. So 2 bars for nothing. And I swore I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it. And then I'll pause and take questions.
This is more authentically the real process of what we go through. So,
oh, heck yeah, sure.
Thank you for staging that, so now we can see what it's often like for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll play the top part while I listen to the second part. Okay, so let me go back to my screen. Somebody asked me a question. Do I use reverb while recording or only the dry signal? Okay, so first of all, I need to explain what any of that means, Georg, so let me do that. So you probably hear that I sound like I'm in a concert hall. I will make myself sound like I'm really in a concert hall. Hello, everybody. How are you? Yeah, so I can actually record myself totally dry. This is, and dry, so dry and wet means dry is just the sound that's coming through the microphone. And I can add, here, actually, let me just screen share. Okay. Okay, so now you're seeing the screen again, right? Okay, cool. So down here, what I'm, actually, what I'll do is this. Can you, oops. I see what happened. Never mind. Sorry. Okay, now it's not working.
We see you.
Okay, hold on. You can see me.
And you know what, Michael? I'm getting a note from people that they can see you when you're sharing the screen as well.
Oh, well,
so I wasn't sure if they could. So.
All right. I have this issue. It says screen sharing failed to start. Here we go. Okay, good. So now we're looking at the screen again. Over here on the bottom left corner, this is the first track. You can see my voice. It's actually, I have it so that you can actually hear me talking through my microphone. But over here is the amount of reverb I can put on this track. And all I have to do is increase this and I can increase the amount of reverb that's coming through. So it sounds like I'm in a hall. I kind of put it in the middle like this, so I hear a little bit of reverberation, because when I'm playing with headphones on, which I always do because I don't want to have the speakers playing what I'm doing, because the speakers would go through the microphone too. So you hear me, and then you hear the recording of me coming through the speakers, and that causes feedback, and that gets really ugly. So anyway, so I put a little bit of reverb on it so that I feel like I'm playing in a bathroom a little bit, because I actually really like I like being able to hear myself in a reverberant room. So that's that. All right, so what I have here now, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, is two very clipped audio files. Clipped means that I recorded them too loud, but that's fine. I'll cope. And what I can do is I can choose which one of these first takes I like. I can highlight the bottom one, and I will just listen to that. Okay, so you can hear I made some mistakes. So what if I wanted to just play, this is the second take, so I want to take just that part of the second take. So now what happens is it plays from the beginning over to here, which is around measure 7, and then it switches to the second take automatically. So if I don't like even just this last C, I can just pick this last high C out. And you don't even hear it. And I could sit here and play and decide I like this note better and that note better. And generally speaking, you don't hear it. So again, it's a little bit off, because when I recorded it, again, I have this weird issue with the delay. Generally, I played better than that. Anyway, so I've edited this, and once I'm done, I actually get a track. Let me close this out, and I'm going to share a different screen. So now you should see this. This is the actual recording that I used. Can you see? So this is the one that I pre-recorded earlier today without all of the delay. And we're just going to listen to that really quickly. So this is what it should sound like. And you can see in here where I picked elements of the first take of the top line and so on, so that I actually liked the way it sounded. I think I chirped a note or something like that in the second take. So I just took it from the first take, and you really don't hear it. So this is the whole thing, both lines together. Okay, so I will pause here, because I imagine you guys have some real questions at this point.
One thing that came in was, how are you doing this comping? But I just pointed out that this is not available in GarageBand, to my knowledge. This is a Logic Pro feature.
Yes, that's true. So unfortunately, that's what you lose, is your ability to do really easy edits in GarageBand. But you know, if you're just starting and you have no expectations of making a record right off the bat, you don't want to spend however much Logic costs, which is like $600 or $700. Do it in GarageBand, and play it right the first time, unlike me. So, any other questions?
I have lost the Q&A window, so my question is, where did the Q&A window go? Do we know, Michelle? Did you?
I see it.
Yeah,
Here it is. There.
There are some questions in there. Tom is saying, can digital pianos interface directly?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they can. So if I wanted to add a piano in here, hold on. I'm just going to bring this back to the Logic screen. So I can add virtual instruments. So I've got my two audio instruments here, and you can see those from the waveforms here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a software instrument like that. Okay, so now I can decide what I want it to be. How about we make it a vintage electric piano? So can you see that? So I suck at piano though, so I'm not going to do much more. But I can make this any instrument that I want, and I have literally thousands of different instruments that I can play with. So often I will be spending a lot of my time listening to different instruments as I'm preparing to work. And most of the work that I do for when I'm recording stuff for records that I make mixes both bass clarinet sound and synthesized sound. The other thing about this software is that my instrument sounds like a bass clarinet now, but I could do anything I wanted to this sound while. Let me share my screen one more time. So right here, it just sounds like a bass clarinet. Well, that's boring. Yeah. I'll just put something really simple on there. Yeah, Mozart would be so pleased. So, but that's some of the weirder sounding stuff. Obviously, I can do things in that will, fix the sound a little bit. I could work with an EQ. And again, you're not going to be able to see this, but because I can't show you this. Well, yes, I can.
Hey, Michael, while you're doing that, a question's come in. What would a recommendation for Windows software be? Maybe Pro Tools or Cubase or?
Yeah, Cubase is fine. Pro Tools is fine. Yeah, anything that's available that's not sort of, you can tell it's good when it's more than like $40. I hate to put it that way, but yeah. Anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on what I can do to make the instrument sound weird or sound better, but just know I have really complex equalizers, so I can take some of the bass sound away, and that's important when you have a microphone that's this sensitive. There's a rumble. There's the sound of the air moving through your house or your studio. Even the best studios, they're ventilated, and that HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, will come through the microphone, and you'll hear a low rumble. So the bass clarinet only goes down to about 60 hertz, so I can cut everything below 60 hertz on the bass clarinet. I lose all of that rumble, and it's not taking up, digital, headspace, as we call it. So headroom. So anyway, that's a totally different subject for another video. Any other questions?
Some people are asking about clipping. So I think some people are noticing that the audio file was going outside of the range of what appears on our track anyways. But they're wondering if you could talk about clipping a little bit.
Sure. So a microphone, trying to think of the easiest way to explain clipping. If you record the sound too loudly into the computer, what happens is the sound can only go within a certain digital threshold of 1 to -1. You have the audio, and the audio will it'll stop at -1, and it won't go higher than +1 inside the computer. But if my microphone is too loud, the microphone's sending numbers above 1.0 and below -1.0. So what happens is the computer just says, sorry, I have nothing for you here, and it clips it to 1 or -1. And what that does is it creates distortion. And distortion is the sound of an electric guitar going through a fuzz box, which is not really what I'm going for here. So that's what clipping does. And the way to solve that, the way I would have fixed that, is I would have turned down the level of the microphone before it goes into the computer so that it never goes above 1 or below -1.
Can I offer an alternate way to think about that?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You might want to think about like a thermometer, right? The thermometer that you would use to tell the temperature in your oven versus your baby versus the sun is very different, right? So if you take the thermometer you use to check your baby's temperature and you check the temperature on the sun, it's going to say it's about, you know, however many degrees it maxes out at, and then that's all it can read. So what the microphone or the thermometer needs to kind of fit the job. And basically what Michael would need to do is turn down the microphone level so that he's not overpowering it in that same way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so basically I would have to turn the temperature of the sun down so that it meets the temperature of your baby.
Yeah. Yeah, or
So,
you can,
yeah.
the measuring tool has to kind of match what you're doing. So you want to match the level in the room. Otherwise you're going to get that clipping sound.
Yeah, but I like your analogy too. So props. I'm going to be stealing that and pretending I made it up.
There's another related question to that, but it's gone away here. Oh, and so I don't know if you want to go into this. This would discuss quantization, but this person asks, I can see the tracks are not perfectly synchronized. How could we fix that?
Ah, you want to know the real secrets. Okay. Damn it. All right. Okay, here we are. Now, they are not perfectly synchronized. Quantization is, in effect, lining up notes and beats to a grid. So I can line up notes to be in a 16th note grid, or I can line them up to, in this particular case, the fastest notes are what are they? 16th note sextuplets. So what you do is you just set up the grid to whatever the slowest, I'm sorry, it's whatever the fastest element is, and then it automatically locks it automatically locks the audio file to that grid. So I'm going to see if I can do that here. So what I've done here, now you can see the top and the bottom. Let's just do the bottom for a second. Okay, so these are triplets. So what I need to do is, what it has to do is it has to analyze the audio to find out where all of the peaks are in the sound. And if you can see, there are little dotted lines in front of every waveform, which is every note, okay? So I can go in here and move them around if I want to. So let me just go ahead and do that manually to show you what that does. So this is, again, what it sounds like normally. Now, if I move this like so, so I can play with this any way I want. So you can't really hear it unless I get really extreme. So anyway, that's me working manually with it. I can also have the computer go ahead and do this automatically to, let's call it 8th note triplets. So what it's done, all right, so let me zoom that back out. Oops. So you can, what it's done, it's very subtle, but it has changed the position of every note slightly, because obviously I'm a human being and I can't play perfectly. So it does it for you. And now if I do that with both lines, what happens is then they're perfectly synced up. And let me just do that real quick. I'm going to do these 16th note triplets. And now let's see if this is perfect. It should be. So it sounds a little not great. I'd have to play with it, but that's what quantizing does. Now, I try to avoid that because it sounds really, unless I really screw something up, I don't do this, because why? Because it makes it sound too perfect. And then it starts to sound mechanical. Now, I'm gonna do one more thing. As long as we're talking about tricks, remember I talked about I could use audio effects? Well, what I'm gonna do, one second here, is I am going to use this great thing called auto-tune. What auto-tune does is I don't even have to play in tune anymore. I never, ever, ever use this, ever. Never.
Ever.
And what this does, let me put it on both tracks, because if I'm going to tune, I want it to be in tune on both. Okay, now you can't see these plugin windows, so I'll move it really quickly so you don't have to wonder what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is I am synchronizing now not just where the audio plays, I am synchronizing the pitch. Yeah, it's 100% perfect. So you put both of those on, you put like the thing that quantizes and lines up your sound to the right beat, and you put in the pitch that quantizes and lines yourself up to the right note. And basically what I've created is a hurdy-gurdy. It's just like it's too electronic. So, but anyway, those are the tricks that you can use. Auto-tune is not just for T-Pain anymore. Clarinetists can use it as well. And sometimes it's important. Like if I'm playing something and I'm holding a note and I have a synthesized note, which is always going to be in tune. What happens is, let me stop sharing real quick. What happens is it sounds like crap. So I have to turn auto-tune on just for that note so that it sounds decent. All right, so let me pause again. This is only the first half because I have to show you how I do the videos too. So let me take a few questions at this point.
Yeah, so one person asked, is quantization automatic or manual? And I think the answer is both. It depends.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question, this is a great question, but someone asked about like adding a CD track, maybe they want to play along, and someone says, can you add other tracks like percussion or any other type of music and instruments?
Oh, you guys are so awesome. Yes. All right. I might as well just keep this sharing because it's more interesting to look at this than it is to look at me. All right, so we are in 6/8. So I'm going to find a 12/8 Afro-Cuban conga sound. Oh, there you go. Okay, let me throw a 12/8 Afro-Cuban conga on here. And this is going to be an audio file. No laughing allowed. Or actually, yeah, it's totally allowed. All right. So these are what's called a loop, right? This is a percussion line, and I have, a billion of them here, if you can see that on my screen. And so I can take any loop, which is a short piece of music that you can repeat. A drum loop generally would be something like that. I'm going to throw a jazzy drum set in because I'm just curious. Yeah. All right. This is my next. This is going to be my next CD right here. But I could also take any other audio file that I want. So here is probably what you're asking. If you were to record something at 120 beats per minute with a metronome perfectly and send it to me, so you could have recorded the bottom line and I could record the top line, I could take your bottom line, set my metronome inside the software to 100 beats per minute and record my line on top of it and then we would have made a duet, which is what a lot of people are doing during, when you see like orchestras doing that, orchestras are not recording into their iPhones. I at least don't think they are. You see them all wearing headphones, and they're recording into a piece of software, which someone is then putting into something like this and mixing it so you don't hear the French horn and trombones being extremely loud and some poor little violinist playing in their studio apartment really quietly. There's somebody who's doing the mixing, and they're doing it on a piece of software like this. So so that's how you would get the audio part of this, where you could mix a bunch of them. Now, again, with Logic, you have the option to if somebody doesn't play it perfectly, you can do what we did with the quantization, and you can manually put something in time with someone else if somebody plays something a little early or late. And of course, I've done that before as well. If I've taken somebody else's track and they didn't play it perfectly, nobody does, I line it up so that we sound good in those instances.
So a couple to expand on that. Some people are asking that thing you just put in, did it mimic the tempo of the track? And
Yeah.
I wanted to say that Michael's using still audio tracks, but you can also add software tracks. So you could program using something called MIDI to add your own beat and write your own drum music if you wanted. And all these software programs like Logic or GarageBand, they come with, like he was saying, thousands of instruments, literally. Like from castanets to drum sets.
Finally, if I'm just going to say one other thing, if I want to make this faster now because I've quantized it, I can do that. I'm just going to play it. All of a sudden I'm going to make it this a lot faster. Let's see if this works. Yeah, I can play that fast. Not. So anyway, when you quantize it, what that allows you to do is even change the tempo. So again, quantizing is the technique of lining the beats of your playing up with the beats that are synced up in the grid of your software. And then auto-tune does that with pitch. So
another question comes in here. How do you remove white noise while recording?
If you mean like hiss, or the sound of your, I don't know, dishwasher or something. I'm actually in my basement. So, I try to get everybody to be quiet. Sometimes there's noise coming from outside. Somebody's like jackhammering and I can't control that. So I have to wait. But generally speaking, if you record in a quiet environment, you can deal with the hiss. If you've got a noisy environment, you can't really remove the hiss without removing some of the sound of your clarinet. So your clarinet will not sound like you want it to sound, or at least sound like it sounded like when you recorded it.
Yeah, it's kind of like baking a cake. I mean, you can't decide after the fact you don't want chocolate chips. You're going to have to.
You're like the analogy king. I love you. Yeah. So
T-shirt with that on it.
Let me just really, really quickly show you what happens in the video part of this. Would you like to see that?
I was going to say 3 people are asking about the video side now. So
all right, can you do me a solid, Michelle, and pin the iPhone video? This is Michael Lowenstern number 2. Okay, here we go.
This Q&A box is a full-time job. You guys are keeping me busy.
All right.
Glad your hair's done.
Right now, I'm going upstairs.
All right, and Michael, you're going to have to speak a little bit louder so we can hear you well. Michael, I think you just turned off your camera, so we're following.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did because I have to do something on here to enable audio.
Ah.
You know what? It's really not that important. What it is upstairs is simply my dining room that has, hold on one second, turn this off. What it is it's my dining room that has the picture that you all see when I'm making the video. There are a couple of lights and there's 2 empty chairs. It kind of looks like this. Okay, so can you all see this? Okay, great. All I have here is, so I went ahead and I recorded this in advance because I wasn't going to go through the whole process of making you watch me sit down with a camera and record it. But I record it twice. I record it once with me sitting on one side, and I record it once with me sitting on the other side. So there's me playing the first part, and there's me playing the second part. Okay. And what I'm doing is I took the recording that you just heard, so that stuff from Logic, the actual audio recording, and I stick it on my phone. And then I play it through a loudspeaker upstairs, and I play along with myself. In effect, I'm lip syncing. I'm not recording the audio from the camera. I'm just recording the video from the camera. Well, to be totally truthful, I am recording the audio, I'm just not using it. So if you see down here, what you've got is there are 3 tracks. There's one video, which is the top of me on the right side. I'll turn that off. There's the second video of me on the left side. And then down here is the audio track, which I pre-recorded in that other piece of software. So great. What I've done then, is I went ahead and recorded the whole thing once, and then I get up and I move into the other chair and I record it again. The same thing. I'm just playing the first part and then I'm playing the second part. So,
Michael, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just for context here, a few people are asking, are we still in Logic Pro, or are you now combining this?
Oh, yeah, good question. No. So this is another piece of software that is the big brother of iMovie. iMovie is the Mac software that you can use to edit, and maybe it's called something different now. This is called Final Cut Pro, and it is another sort of it's the pro version of iMovie, like Logic is the pro version of GarageBand. We have hands raising.
Yeah, people were asking if we're basically still in Logic. I believe you're now working in tandem between the 2 programs. Is that correct?
No, Logic is quit.
Oh, it's quit. Okay.
I am not using Logic at all anymore. Down here is a sound file. So Logic, it does the recording, but then I can, what it's called, mix it down, which turns it into an MP3 file. I could send it to you over a computer. I could post it on Spotify. I could do anything I want with it. And what I am doing with it is I'm taking it and I'm dragging it. Like you were asking, can you take an audio file and drag it into Logic? Yes. You can also take an audio file and drag it into Final Cut Pro, which is the video editing software. The other software, Logic, was the audio editing software. So let's see with the chat. Great. Video software is Final Cut. Great. I can see the chat. I can answer these questions. Then I've got my camera, and it has a little card that comes out of the camera, right? So this is the data card, and I stick it into something that allows me to take that's an actual video file and drag the video into Final Cut Pro, and then I line everything up by audio. Because as you know, I've recorded playing to the recording that I made before. I'm just playing along with it, so I can just sync everything up. And once I've synced everything up, I turn the volume down from the recorded pieces, because that sounds like crap. It's coming through my camera, and I don't care about that because I have the good sounding recording on the screen itself. I'm sorry, in the software itself. But here's another problem. I only see one of me. So how do you do this? And this is the magic of what like Nicholas does and I do, and anybody who has multiple versions and aren't using like a cappella software, where you see them sitting in the same place with little black lines between them. What I use is something here called a mask. What a mask does is it allows you to just use part of the video file. And what I'm going to do is right now, I'm putting it in. Actually, yeah. And let me turn off the bottom. So what I'm doing here, normally you see all of the video. Can you see this? So you're looking, what I'm doing is I'm just cutting out this part of the video, but you can see it's a soft fade, if you will. So it's not just a hard line. So I just take this half from one video and that half from the other video. And so because this one is only showing you the top part of it, I'm sorry, the right part of it. And the bottom one, I could do the exact opposite, just so that it's clear. It's only showing you the left part of it. When I put them together, you see both. But you see there's this little black line in there, which means that I need to play to blend it in like that. So now you see both of me. And then, so how are you enjoying quarantine? I'm getting kind of sick of you. Yeah, I'm sick of you too. Right. So then you can sort of play along with. There I am using the audio from the actual recording, and you can even hear in here they're like sawing down tree limbs. Yeah, so that's the crap I have to deal with here in Brooklyn is, yeah, we're in quarantine except for the people who are, I don't know, doing that. Anyway, that is how I do the videos. Now, if I have more than two of me, then I have to just be really careful that I don't lean into the other frame, because there is a hard cutoff to where I can't move my arm. If I move my arm, you know, over here, I can't show you, but if I move it farther over here, the problem is that you'd see my hand get cut off. So I have to be really careful when I'm recording so that I don't, so that I'm in my zone, if you will, and then that other me is in that zone. And that's why you can only see like a couple of me in a frame at a time. Now, I can use a green screen, and what that does is it allows me to, it's kind of like how Zoom allows me to, I don't know, do this. So it sort of will just take the part of me that is in front, and it allows me to cut the back of it out. So it sort of does that. I don't know who this person is behind me. So anyway, so that's how I do it. And that's the show. So I am now ready to take any questions about this or anything else. Thank you. This is literally the first time I've ever done this, so I hope it makes sense. I know I went really, really fast. So
that helps a lot of people. I know I'm learning too. Someone was asking if you think iMovie can do this. I'm pretty sure this is just Premiere or Final Cut.
Yeah, I don't think iMovie does this either. It's like, you know, it's one of those things that I think somebody said that Final Cut Pro and Logic are both like $200. So if you're serious about it and you try and you're like, yeah, I want to be able to do those things, then you can buy it later.
Yeah, and someone said to, just to be clear, and this is totally, I think, the case for all the videos now that we're learning this, but they said, just so we're clear, what we're seeing is you playing to a recording you did earlier and sort of lip syncing on the video. And
that's right. I could, and in some cases I do record the actual recording of me, but like if I'm doing a multi-track, like I did September by Earth, Wind & Fire, that's like 7 of me, and lining that up. And also the quality of the sound in my studio is much better than the quality of my sound in my dining room. That's why I don't do it if I'm making like a serious recording. If I'm making a duet video like I've been doing, yeah, I'll do that because it's sort of more, I don't want to call it this, but like disposable. It's not as important that I make a serious quality recording. I didn't know what I was going to do with September or Peg or Uptown Funk. And, you know, I wanted a good recording of it just in case I wanted to, I don't know, send it to Stevie Wonder or something like that. So anyway.
Well, I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn too that even when you watch a movie, this is very normal. There's sound studios that make almost every sound you're hearing on the screen after the fact. Mm-hmm. Add that into the video. So another person asks, if you're collecting videos from different people, how do you isolate the audio tracks and insert them? In that case, perhaps you just mix it in Final Cut, and if you don't have a separate track already, you might as well just do it there. Or what are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. So if you're bringing in a video that you're going to make a duet with somebody, so you know Sean and Michelle and I are going to do a trio. We'd each record it however we record it, and then I'd stick it in Final Cut. I would not necessarily go to Logic first, because there's not going to be a whole lot I'm going to be able to do about the fact that, you know, Michelle's husband is vacuum cleaning. You know, I mean, that's just like the way it is. So there's not much I can do. So I would just sort of deal with that. I'd make sure that they were synced up and lined up as best as I can. That's why you see people always wearing headphones when they're recording, because they're playing to a metronome. And so you've got to just, you know, you have to play really, really well to that metronome and hope that everyone else in our trio is going to do that. And then you just do the editing and final cut. If it's really a total hot mess and I can't ask either of Michelle or Sean to re-record it, I might have to do some serious editing in Logic, and then it becomes a little bit like taxidermy. You know, you're trying to bring something back to life, or at least look like it. But you know, there are instances where I've had to do that too.
One question is, are there budget versions of these software? And I would probably say no. I mean, a lot of the stuff you really get very advanced things. And there's not really, that I'm aware of, a way to do something like what Michael's doing for free. You really need to invest in these software programs.
You know, here's the thing. You can get freeware, and what you save in money, you spend in frustration. And I see that both Michelle and Sean are nodding their heads, and I bet a lot of you are too. You know, there's good software is worth the money. And what it does is it allows you to be more efficient and be able to do more in less time. So I know there's free versions of Logic, there are free versions of video editors, but in order to do this, I could do it, but I'd have a lot more gray hair than I already have.
Another question comes in, they see some padding and stuff on the walls in your office. Why are you using that, and what kind of things should people do to treat their rooms?
That's a great question. So I didn't talk about that, but rooms, if you took all of the furniture out of your living room, like all of it, and you started talking, you would hear how the room sounds different, right? It sounds really echoey. Any room has a bit of that, because the walls in any room, unless you're in an institution, are hard. So you know, and when hard surfaces reflect sound, and when hard surfaces reflect sound, they reflect sound in ways that you can't necessarily control. Now, sound travels at 700 miles an hour, and I don't know how many kilometers that is, but it travels fairly slowly compared to something like light. So 700 miles an hour is really fast, and this room is, I don't know, maybe 6 feet wide. So it goes really quickly, but it's still, there's a delay between the time the sound hits this wall, reflects off this wall, and goes onto that wall. And what that does is it creates this sounds like flutters. So it's like, and you can hear that sometimes in a room if you stand in the middle of it. Okay, that's not a great environment for recording. What you can do is you can buy these pieces of very dense foam. Now, I paid money for this foam, but you could use blankets. Anything thick that will absorb sound will dampen the fact that your room is a reverberant room, much like your couch does when you put it back in your living room. All of a sudden, your living room sounds like your living room again. So I bought different kinds of specialized foam for the walls, different kinds for the corners of my studio that you can't see, because corners are where bass tends to collect. So there are these things called bass traps that suck the bass out. And all I'm trying to do is make this as quiet and as consistent and flat as possible, so that if I want to do some adding reverb, I'm not taking the reverb of my room and adding reverb to that. I can have a really dry room, and I can have a room that has as good of a sound as I could possibly get and still be in my basement.
So Michael's solutions are professional and good looking, but if you're just trying to get a really quick and easy recording, honestly, there are some budget ways for this. Like, I'm a podcaster, and many podcasters I know, they actually, believe it or not, sit in their closet because it's the deadest space in the house. There's no sound at all that clothes hanging above them. So I don't podcast from the closet, but you could also just stuff pillows in your corners and hang a bed sheet or something behind you. That'll absorb a lot of sound.
Right.
Try that. This is a great question that's come in. How do you get training for these software programs, and does it come with the program?
Well, it depends on if you're the kind of person who learns from reading a manual, or if you're the kind of person who learns from somebody teaching you in real time, or somebody who watches videos. So if you're the kind of person who learns how to do stuff through YouTube, thank you, please come visit me on my channel. If you're the kind of person who learns on YouTube, there are a bazillion videos about this. And the best way to learn this is not to sort of crack open the manual and start reading. It's to try and figure out how to do something in particular. When I wanted to learn how to line up 3 pieces of recording so that they sync up, I had to go on YouTube. I found it on YouTube. There was a guy that explained it to me, and I was able to do it. So you can use that method, which is free. You can go to, there are training videos that you can go on something like lynda.com, that's lynda.com, and they have a ton of professionally made training videos that you can go through. Or of course you can try it on your own and tear your hair out and read the manual, and you'll eventually get there. But there are a number of different ways that you can learn it, and many of them are free.
Lynda.com is paid, but just as a heads up, a lot of libraries provide free access. My local library gives a free login code, and that's worth $30 a month, and I've learned a lot of software on there.
Yeah.
Another question here, just related to the soundproofing. Did you have to do your doors too, or is that a normal thing too?
I didn't do the door, but you may not be able to see it, but I actually have little hooks up on the ceiling. I don't do it on the door because the door won't open if I do. So what I do is I can close the door, and then I have this really heavy carpeting, which is actually sound deadening fabric. It's not a carpet, it's special stuff that I can use to close this entirely off behind me. So I'm in my little cocoon. When I'm actually doing like serious recording, I'll do that.
This question is, how would you combine with others or coordinate a video like this? I mean, do you send around a click track or?
Yep. Or well, hopefully everybody has a metronome. So you say, okay guys, can we do this at 88? And people are like, sure. And then, everybody has an electronic metronome on their phone or something like that. 88 is 88 is 88, like A440 is A440. So you get everybody to tune really well. Then you get everybody to set their metronome to 88, and they just record it. And then when you get into there, you can see the audio waveforms, and you can line them up. I always have 4 clicks in my sound file before the metronome turns off, so that when I'm starting the video, I don't have to have a metronome going through the whole time when I'm making my own videos. But anyway, you could even have a metronome running through the whole thing and just try it that way, audibly. So you're recording your clarinet and you're recording your metronome at the same time, so you can line it up. But metronome is key, and of course, intonation is key.
Someone was asking about the difference in microphone settings, for example, cardioid versus omnidirectional, etc.
Wow. Okay, so first I have to explain what that means to some people. A microphone, here's a microphone. Most microphones, an omnidirectional microphone will pick up all around the microphone, on the top, around the sides, and even from behind. That's what an omni means, is everything. A cardioid sounds like, well, cardioid sounds like cardiac, and it's a heart shape. So what happens is the sound, rather than picking up sound behind the microphone like an omni does, it picks up just the front of the microphone and a little bit of the sides. And that's useful if you're recording in an environment where there's someone else performing on the back side of the microphone. So you don't want to pick up, like if Michelle and I were both recording, I'd point one mic at me and one mic at her. Her microphone would pick up less of me, and my microphone would pick up less of her. Then there are other kinds of microphones that are even more directional, like shotgun microphones. These are what news reporters use when they don't want to pick up the ambient sound of, they're recording somebody on the street and they're going like this, and then they're going like this. That microphone literally just picks up right in front. It doesn't pick up everything around the side. So those are not especially useful for music. They're really good for when you're doing interviews on the street, but they're not great for music unless your music is like, it's like a telephoto lens for audio. So I can point it and it will just zoom right into wherever the audio is coming from, more or less. But that's what the different kind of microphones are. I use a Cardioid microphone for various reasons. I used to own a couple of omnidirectional microphones. Those are great when you're recording an orchestra and you want to record everybody. And it's sort of like you're recording the mix that the orchestra makes. You have a little bit more flexibility of what you want to record and what you don't want to record. So this Cardioid microphone I use, I don't want to record the fan on my computer which gets hot and my computer starts, running. I don't want to record this. This microphone will reject that more than an omnidirectional microphone would.
And that's a good point. If you want the best way to eliminate sounds in your office, for example, is to choose the right microphone. Don't use an omnidirectional condenser microphone that's going to pick up everything from the far corners of the room, right? You want to maybe keep it more to this space here. And someone else was asking, like, how to choose the right mic for the right instance.
It's, honestly, it's trial and error. That's why somebody like me has a lot of microphones. Generally speaking, it's kind of like a toothbrush. If you buy it, you can't really sell it. Unless you sell it on eBay and you're somebody who buys used toothbrushes. But you can, once you have it and you have it out, generally speaking, after a certain period of time, the seller won't take it back from you. So, somebody else mentioned here, and they're right. It's you choose the mics for the instrument that's in front of it and the intent of the recording session. So this microphone I bought because I love the way it makes a bass clarinet sound. I don't really like the way it makes my clarinet sound. Now, how could that be? Well, it's just a fact that different microphones have different characteristics and colors, as we call them. And so I can use this microphone for a bass clarinet, but I have a different microphone that I use for my B flat. If that's
so, and I think that some of the terms are a bit confusing to people because they mix up with music terms. So we're talking about dynamic and condenser microphones. We're not discussing musical dynamics. These are two different types of microphones.
Yeah, it's just it's a different way that the microphone picks up sound and transmits it. There are two kinds. There are more than two, but the main two are condenser, which uses electricity, and it charges the two. I'm not going to go too far into this, but it charges two plates. And so when the plate moves, it's moving with the sound of my voice. It's measuring the electricity in a certain way, whereas a dynamic microphone measures it in a different way.
And usually condensers are much, much more sensitive. So like a reporter, for example, is going to use a dynamic microphone, but a studio recording like what Michael's doing would use a condenser. Someone wants to know exactly what condenser you're using. I don't remember if you answered that already.
So this, I can't take it off or else you won't hear me. It's a Chinese-made microphone. It is, for me, it gives me a lot of bang for the buck. It was about $1,600. I will type in here what it's called. It's called an actually it's written SE, like that electronics. Gemini 2. Sounds like a spaceship. So that's the microphone that I'm using. It's about $1,600. I have other ones I could go get out. I mean, most people who have microphones, you start to collect them, and I have about 7.
Yeah, there are much more affordable options you can experiment with, but you do, just like with the software programs, you seriously get what you pay for. If a $40 microphone will not sound like a $1,600 microphone, but maybe a $100 one gets a bit closer, right? So
this is a great microphone. This is another SE electronics microphone. It looks a lot like, if you've recognized an AKG microphone, it looks very similar to that. This is the same company that makes the big one that I use. This is maybe $400. This is the one I use on my B-flat clarinet. As you can kind of see in the reflection, there's a little, can you see the gold circle? It uses the same technology that one does. It's just, it doesn't, there's details about it that are very esoteric. But that's why I use this one. This one also will change its pattern from omni to cardioid to something called supercardioid to something called figure 8. So that's useful, and it just makes your microphone, you can use it in different environments. I could mic an orchestra with this, whereas I would not mic an orchestra with the one that I've been using to talk to you today.
So Michael, is there a model number on the one you just showed us?
Sure. This is an SE4400A.
Great. Thank you. I'll put that on the resource page.
Sure. Yeah. And that's just a few $100, which actually is pretty cheap.
I think for some people here that are now looking probably at getting a microphone, there are much simpler solutions that might be better. Like I see one in the chat, AT2020, for just getting started, because you want to avoid this kind of extreme frustration curve where you're never going to record anything. And what Michael's using too is an interface into his computer, and this is a whole next step, which also affects the character of the mic. So if you put a $1,600 microphone through a kind of cheap $50 interface, it's not going to sound its best. You probably need a good intermediary as well.
So somebody just asked a really good question, and you're right. By the way, you can get a microphone that looks just like this, that plugs straight into your computer. You don't need any of the other voodoo that I have. It can literally just plug right into your computer or into your phone. They will look different. Some of them will be really sexy looking, and some of them will look like regular old microphones. Really, honestly, just read the reviews, decide how much you want to spend, and you're not going to really have that big of a difference between, let's say, a $100 microphone and a $150 microphone. It's really not going to, you start to see the difference, like clarinets, you know, when you start getting into the professional microphones, and those things can go way up into the tens of thousands of dollars. Then you have these people who are like wine connoisseurs of microphones who can listen to it and say, oh, that is a Neumann U87 from 1968. And to them, yeah. So anyway, you don't have to go nuts with it, is true. Somebody asked if a Zoom H4n works. So what those are self-contained recorders. They record onto a card like this, like my camera does. Those work just great. They have good microphones in them, and they do the recording. Then you can take your sound file off of your card and drag it into GarageBand or drag it into Logic, and it's actually super easy. Like you would be dragging your photos into your photo editing program. You just do this with the sound file. And so you don't even need to get any of this stuff. So the Zoom is great because you can go record anywhere. You can record in your closet, Sean, if that's what you'd like to do. But you can also record, you know, in a concert hall if you're playing a recital, when you don't want to have to bring your computer and a microphone and all that other nonsense. Those Zoom or Tascam or Roland or Sony handheld recorders are amazing for what you get. Really, really great.
Michael, can I just take a second? I want to show people what that looks like. So here's a Zoom, you know, it has batteries in it, and again, all sorts of microphone settings, so very handy if you're on the road with it.
And somebody says that you can actually connect the Zoom directly to your computer. I don't own one, so I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
The Zoom can act as an interface. The Zoom H6 can actually have mics plugged into it, and it's a very good portable interface.
Wow, okay. I'm learning something. Now you just spent more of my money. Thank you.
They're only $700, Michael.
Yeah, right.
Someone has asked, how do you do your stuff live? I believe you use, what's that program called? It starts with an M.
Good. Yeah. So it's called Max, M-A-X.
Max MFP, yeah.
But actually, I've converted to using Ableton Live for my live stuff for a bunch of reasons. I'd used Max for about 15 years, and now I converted all of my tunes verbatim into Ableton. That took about 2 years.
And this was a good question. For live mics, what would you recommend? And I think you just said dynamics instead of condensers.
No, I use, do I have it here? No, I don't. I use clip-on microphones. I have a bunch of videos about them. So those are microphones. They're slightly different than these in that they don't sound as good, frankly. But they also will not feed back as quickly and cause that whistle that you get.
And the AMT stuff?
I have AMTs. I'm not using those so much anymore. And then finally, I just recently got this, which is you drill a hole in a mouthpiece. So I drilled a hole, or I had someone professionally drill a hole, and this thing is fantastic. It doesn't sound good at all, but if you're doing a lot of reverb or echoes or special effects, you're not going to notice that. It doesn't. I mean, I wouldn't record like a CD with this thing because it sounds terrible that way, but it really is good for certain purposes. And if you're playing in a loud environment, like in a club or a jazz band, this is literally the only thing you can use, and that is made by this company here. Rumberger, and you can actually see the picture. It drills into the mouthpiece. It doesn't. Yeah, it gives me anxiety too, Tina. But it you know, the reality is this is not my first mouthpiece. I I bought an extra mouthpiece just in case. So as it turns out, I really like the mic. I really like the microphone. I don't really like this particular mouthpiece. This B50 doesn't feel the way on my other B50s are. So I actually literally, you can't take it out once it's in. So for sale. It's one of
you just spent all my money, because I've been looking for a pickup to get my clarinet into a looper pedal. On a B-flat clarinet, would it be better to put that into the barrel?
You can put it in the barrel if you want. I don't, on a bass clarinet, have a barrel, and I'm not drilling into my neck. I'm not buying an extra neck.
Bass neck.
Yeah, my bass clarinet neck. Now, somebody says it only picks up the sound from the mouthpiece. You would be surprised. That's all I have to say. I can totally see why you would imagine that, but it's like some kind of weird voodoo how it works. I have no idea.
Totally. So there's a lot of other questions here. I don't know if they're related, so feel free just to skip them if you want.
I'll answer anything.
Okay, so how long would how long would it take you to create and finish a 10-minute video with everything start to finish?
Let's assume that all of the music has been written and that I've learned it, because that part takes, it depends. But to sit down, I record the audio in about 3 hours. And then I have to figure out what I want to do with video. And so the video usually takes maybe 6 hours to record, and then usually another 6 hours to edit. So I can actually do it in a day and a half. So, but you know, you get faster as you do it more. I suppose the first time I did it, it took me a couple days. So
including music and practice, we're talking a couple days work for a 10-minute. Well,
it depends on how hard it is. Like I just finished a new arrangement of My Favorite Things from Sound of Music, and it's freaking hard. So that's going to take a while to fix and to get going. So I'm going to start practicing that today.
This question says, could you explain how the Barber of Seville video was done? Now, I haven't seen that one yet. Exactly. So
well, first so this is a video that I most recently put out, which is where Catherine is cutting my hair while I play the Barber of Seville quartet. I leave the first part off for someone to play along with me, but I recorded that as well, so I have the whole. Anyway, first thing is you have to grow your hair for 11 weeks. Then I just literally, I said, Catherine, you ready to do this? And we did it. And I had one take because I can't glue it back on once it's been cut off. So I recorded it. And then if you haven't seen it, what I've done is I've added other videos from different movies where people are getting their hair cut off. And I sort of synced those up to the music. And I can actually, like I was time stretching my audio, as you saw, like when I made my music like 180 beats per minute, and it went really fast. You can stretch video that way too. So I had to compress or stretch the video just a little bit so that it would sync up. Like I had to do that with the Edward Scissorhands clip, for example. So that's how I did it. I took my stuff, and then I took all those other pieces and I laid them on top.
Cool, I'll have to watch that one. That sounds really interesting. This is a good question. How do you deal with licensing for pieces like Uptown Funk, etc.? Is that handled by YouTube? Pretty much.
I don't ask. So the reality of it is I am nobody. And, you know, I may get 100 or 200 or 500,000 views or even 1 million views. And I'm a blip on nobody's radar. Generally speaking, though, like when I did the Mambo from West Side Story a couple weeks ago, YouTube, they have some kind of algorithm that immediately noticed that it was the music, and they immediately noticed that it was the video, and they wrote me, and they're like, we noticed this. So you can't monetize your video. You can't make money off of people watching it. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't make money anyway, so that's cool. And then they're like, oh, and then the original copyright holder wants to make money off of your video. And I'm like, go for it. It's, you know, I hope you enjoy your latte after 3 years. So it wasn't a big deal. It's really, really rare for you to get what's called a copyright strike, which means that I recorded something and somebody's really pissed off about it and is taking me to YouTube court. And so it usually isn't a problem. So I don't request permission to make the videos. And then in terms of making the edited and I sell arrangements, you have to do that through a licensing organization, and there are a number of different ones. I use Hal Levy, and basically you pay them a flat rate for the first, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 that you expect to sell, and you pay them that as though you sold it up front. And then if you sell more, then you're supposed, it's the honor system at that point, then you pay them some more. So, so they take a cut, in essence, but they take a cut up front before you've sold any of them. So you better hope that people buy them. That's how that works.
Yeah. So in short, like YouTube will generally handle it, but like there are technically things.
Well, YouTube handles the video. And then when I actually sell the arrangements, you need permission.
Yeah. So this next question, this is really unrelated. I'm not sure, maybe it comes from somewhere you did recently, but it says, how come you rarely use an A clarinet?
I don't have much music for it. I don't actually own one anymore. When I left the orchestra in 2005, I kept it for a few years, and then I realized I wasn't playing it, and those things need to get played. So when I do have to play them, I borrow my wife's. But there isn't a whole lot. Like, actually, I just did a video where I did the Poulenc duo, which has B flat and A, and that has an A in it. So there.
Oh, there we go. We didn't talk much about this. This is a really good question. What type of camera would we use to make a good video? We talked a lot about mics and things like that. And any other tips for, what is that device there? Is that an iPhone?
It's an iPhone that's plugged into a tripod.
The same one.
One of these guys. Actually, I don't use one. I use a better camera. But these things take amazing video. So again, you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money to get started. So I happen to have a different camera that I use, but
iPhone cheers. They said, what's the name of the thing on your mouthpiece? I would just call it a pickup, but what was the brand one more time?
Sure. This is the brand. Rumburger, not to be confused with hamburger. WP1X. They make two different kinds. This is the kind that plugs into your mouthpiece. They make a kind also that plugs into a barrel that's different.
Cool.
WP1X. Yes, Michelle. If you want to have, somebody mentions about light. Yeah, I have actually lights upstairs. So they're LED lights that are really, really bright, that light the room so that, if it's nighttime, it doesn't look like it's nighttime, because normally it would otherwise just be the ambient light and my light above, in the ceiling. So yeah, I have fill lights that are, again, it's a cost of doing business, and they're a couple $100 on Amazon, but they're pretty bright. But they don't get hot because they're LEDs, so they're pretty awesome, and they're battery operated, which is also awesome. Wow, and then in terms of a camera, you can get just about really any camera that does good video. I'm about to buy a new one because I want to get 4K video. I want to have a little bit more resolution when I zoom in.
Yeah, I have a camera that I just upgraded. It's called the Sony a6400. Very good camera, but one of the things that I find with every new piece of technology is you just reach such a learning curve. And I've been so frustrated to try and learn the features of the camera and the features of the software programs and the features of all these things that I find myself just going back to my phone half the time.
Dude, that's the camera that I'm going to buy.
Oh, really?
If you want to sell it, we can work out a deal here, brother.
Oh, no, I'll be using it. But okay. You can get a really good lens, though. You have to get...
Yeah, we don't have to talk about this now.
Yeah,
we can geek out later.
Someone asked about a secondary camera, though, and I don't know the answer to that. How do you have two running at once? Like, are you using an iPad as well, or what's happening?
Right now?
Maybe in general, their question wasn't clear. How would I do a two camera video recording and sync it up?
Oh, well, like I said, the camera records on, well, think about it this way. I recorded with two cameras when I recorded my duet. They happen to be the same camera, but I recorded it two different times. You can actually do that with two cameras and then take each card out of the camera, put it in your computer, and sync it up that way. So it's, you can use anything. And if you use your phone as your second camera, you just dump the video through the cable or through AirPlay? No, not AirPlay.
Airstream.
That thing.
AirDrop.
AirDrop. I feel like an old person. It's that phone thing that you use. I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, so you can just do that and you can take any video that you want.
And just a simple old-fashioned clap, or at the beginning, just clap to sync the files?
Oh, I don't even do that.
Oh, really? Okay. Because that's one way, obviously, is just to clap and then line up the claps in the two videos.
You can do it that way if you want. I have the metronome sync, so I don't have to clap.
Get one of those old-fashioned film ones.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There. That'll be the next thing I buy.
And this is a great question too. Another aspect we didn't talk about. I guess we're going to keep uncovering aspects as we go deeper in this. But what about headphone types? Are there types that'd be better for this, or not? Doesn't matter.
I don't like in-ear headphones. I like headphones that go over my head. The reason I have headphones that go over my head is because you don't want the sound that's coming out. If I'm recording, you don't want the sound coming out of your headphones into your microphone. So these things clamp my head pretty tightly, and then there are these rubber seals, these cushions that keep the sound inside, and they don't leak out so that you're hearing it come through the microphone. Because again, you just want your bass clarinet sound or whatever you're recording coming through the mic. So they're called closed back headphones that don't have air. I have some open back headphones too, and those leak out. And like Apple headphones totally leak. Like we all know that when we're standing next to somebody who's listening to music.
Yeah, and you can get the different headphones have, you said open back, closed back. So you just have to figure out which works for you.
Yeah.
I kind of like to play, if I can, with something a little bit open so I can hear myself, or I do what he's doing and leave one ear off. So you can hear
both my ears are on.
Oh, are they both on? Oh, it looks like, okay.
Yeah. 1, 2.
Both
it really, are you can get a different kind of, bunch of microphones. You can get a bunch of headphones, and the reality is, if it works for your circumstance, then it's fine.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of great questions. I think I speak for, I hope everybody, over 200 people here still, and I just want to give you a huge thank you for all this amazing information.
Okay.
And I've learned a ton too, and I've really enjoyed kind of co-hosting this. Thanks for the opportunity, Michelle. And where can everyone check you out online, Michael, for all your...
you can find me on YouTube, but Ear Spasm is my website, and youtube.com/earspasm is anything ear spasm is going to be me, I think. And that's where you can find me. That's my home online.
Awesome.
Michael, this has been great. We're going to, as always, here with the Clarinet Connections Online Festival, we'll post the replay in the membership area and a list of the resources that you mentioned. And I just want to let everyone know what's coming up next. Later today, 5 p.m. Pacific, I will be the guest artist, and Sean will be joining me. And we're going to have an interactive workshop designed for beginning to intermediate level players. As many awesome how to play clarinet more easily tips that we can throw at you in an hour, we're going to do. Should be really fun. And then tomorrow, Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have Maury Bakun on, who designs clarinets, designs all kinds of things. It's called Everything You've Wanted to Know About Clarinet and Were Afraid to Ask. So any questions you have about gear, how it works, how it interacts, that's tomorrow. Michael, this has been so great. I have a feeling that this video is going to get shared by many, many people, especially in today's day and age when everyone's trying to put stuff together. So thank you so much for taking all the time to set it up for all of us.
My pleasure. And you all know how to reach me, right? You go on the website, you click contact, you write me a letter. I almost always respond unless you're rude. So go ahead and ask anything that you want to ask, and I will get back to you. It's my pleasure to help you record yourself, make music, learn how to play clarinet, anything that you need. I got nowhere else to be. I'm in New York after all. So you all stay safe. Thank you so much for staying with us.
That's great. Thank you, Sean Perrin from Clarinet, for hosting today, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye, everybody.